graders, this is Miss Kish. This is your next science lesson video. This video looks a lot like yesterday's video, but it is different. Okay, we're just going to start by reviewing what we talked about yesterday. So let me go ahead and make the screen bigger. So second graders, if you remember yesterday, and when we were talking about earthquakes, we talked about how the surface of the earth or underneath is made up of plates, right? And you can see the plates on this map, and they are sliding against each other and bumping into each other and moving away. And that can cause earthquakes, and it can also help cause volcanoes, right? Let's see. Then we talked about how underneath the crust and underneath those plates, the earth is made up of different layers, and some of those layers are melted rock, right? They're so hot, and we call that melted rock magma. And when it comes above the surface of the earth, then we call it lava. So think about as those plates are moving into each other and maybe pushing up to make mountains, magma might be coming up, or if they're moving away from each other, magma might be coming up, right? Okay, and then we talked about the part of the earth called the Ring of Fire, and this is where most of the volcanoes on Earth are found. Not all of them, and actually Hawaii is out here in the middle of a plate. We're going to watch a video about Hawaii in just a minute, and another video we're going to watch is actually out here in Iceland. So these are not the only places where we find volcanoes, but it's where most volcanoes are found. Let's back up a couple pages, and if you look on this map, you can see the Ring of Fire is kind of along the edge right here. And then over here, this is Alaska. This is part of the United States. And down the west coast of the United States, and then down South America. That's the Ring of Fire, okay? All right, I'm gonna switch us over to watch the first video. Okay, this is Hawaii, and we're going to see some footage from the volcano that we looked at yesterday too.
Beneath the world's most breathtaking beauty beats a heart of fire. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park on the island of Hawaii is the place to get up close to one of the world's hottest spots.
This is Hawaii Volcanoes National Park.
On the summit of the Kilauea volcano, a voluminous plume of steam and gas jets thousands of feet into the air. This first explosive eruption in the Halemaumau crater in over 80 years reminds us there's much more to come. From the coast of Kilauea to the summit of Mauna Loa, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park surrounds two super volcanoes. Millions of years of eruptions built up shield shapes.
So boys and girls, that would be a slow change, right? Millions of years it's taken to make it look like this. Something else I want you to notice, look at this volcano. This is not what we think of when we think of volcanoes that are, pointy on top, kind of like a mountain. This one looks a lot different, right? Because there are different kinds of volcanoes.
Mauna Loa means long mountain, and there's more than meets the eye. Measured from the ocean floor to the summit, it's the world's most massive volcano. In its shadow, Kilauea is one of the world's most active volcanoes. Nearly continuous lava flows since 1983 have added over 550 acres to the Big Island.
So this is the volcano we learned about yesterday.
We're on an active volcano. Things are always happening. Things are always changing. And as a geologist, in most places, you don't see geologic change in your lifetime, much less in the course of a week. And here in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, things can change in a day's time.
Once considered a curiosity.
So second graders, this is what we mean about it can be a slow change, right? Because it took hundreds of thousands of years to make the whole volcano to form the size it is now. But it can also be a fast change because things are changing. Since 1983, they've added all that new land to the island, right? That's a pretty fast change compared to thousands of years.
Kilauea's ongoing eruptions and accessibility offer an unprecedented opportunity to observe the inner workings of a shield volcano. From a hotspot deep within the earth, magma, or molten rock, rises beneath the summit of Kilauea to Pu'uo'o. From there, it travels by surface flows or below ground through lava tubes to empty out into the Pacific Ocean. When a section of the roof of a tube caves in, a skylight reveals red-hot lava. Volcanologists regularly retrieve samples, checking for chemical changes or any.
So second graders, a volcanologist is a scientist who studies volcanoes, right? And they would have special training and go to school to learn how to use these tools and how to study volcanoes safely and to teach us new things. So that could be your job when you're a grown-up, right? You could decide to be a volcanologist and study volcanoes.
To gauge the pulse of the volcano. Along the south flank of Kilauea, volcano watchers get unprecedented access.
People can drive right around the summit and onto the caldera floor. They can hike across the caldera. There are craters like Kilauea Iki that you can hike across. You can see land that's less than an hour old. So I think the dynamic, ever-changing landscape of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is what makes it unique and special.
As older volcanoes lie dormant, new ones form. Nearly 15 miles southeast of the island of Hawaii, Loihi, a potential new island in the chain, is rising up flow by flow. Within 3,100 feet of sea level, scientists predict it will take some 250,000 years to surface, in an ongoing process that created 80% of the Earth.
So second graders, we learned about that yesterday, how there is kind of a hot spot of magma, right? And then as the plates are moving, the magma is coming up and forming new islands. So there could be a new island in Hawaii, he said 250,000 years. So in a long time, right? That's a slow change. Okay, we have one more video to watch. This one takes place in Iceland. And as you watch it, think about how their lives are different from our lives because they live in a spot that was made by volcanoes. And they have volcanoes still there that are erupting. Unlike us, we don't have volcanoes near us. All right, hang on just a second. Okay, here is our last video for the day. Go ahead and watch this one. I think you'll think this one is pretty cool.
Siggy Ron Hilmarsson is an Icelandic baker with an unconventional oven. He bakes bread by burying it underground, where it's heated for 24 hours by nearby hot springs.
It's very common to see hot springs here in Iceland.
208
there is
degrees.
Lava crawling under us. This lava is heating up water, and this.
So second grader water boils at 212 degrees, and they said it was 208 degrees, so just below boiling.
Water comes boiling up on the surface.
So sometimes it is above,
put it in the oven, but this is much more fun.
Iceland is
Lava-baked
one of the most
bread.
volcanic regions in the world, with 30 active volcanoes at any one time. That helps create an abundance of hot springs, some with boiling hot water, and Siggy uses them to his advantage. He specializes in baking húfabröð, a traditional Icelandic rye bread recipe that dates back hundreds of years.
I know for sure that in this village, I can track it down as far as late 1800 something. My grandmother taught my mother how to bake this bread, and my mother taught me. In the hot spring rye bread recipe, we have rye, flour, sugar, baking powder, salt, and milk. We put this in a pot. We put butter in the pot, Then we wrap it with plastic foil and we put it down in our hot spring
16
hole
inches
for
below the
24
surface.
hours. It's very obvious to see if the ground is hot or not. I never use a thermometer. If I need to check the heat, I just use this one. Our biggest challenge is rain. If it rains a lot, these holes that we are using can cool down. And if they are not hot enough, obviously the bread doesn't bake completely.
Says he bakes 70 loaves of bread each week. He shares some with his family and sells the
Everybody
rest.
eats our bread. Our visitors, the locals, hot spring rye bread has a unique taste that you don't get from others. The texture of this bread is quite special. It's quite heavy. It's not the typical light bread. When you show this to travelers that come to Iceland and you see their faces, they go, wow. Then you start to think that this is quite amazing, actually.
So second graders, can you imagine living in a place where you could bake bread in the ground because the ground is so hot from the volcanoes, right? Isn't that amazing? It's pretty cool. All right, second graders. So today we have learned some more about volcanoes, right? We talked about where volcanoes are, different kinds of volcanoes, and what it looks like as they're erupting, and even how it could change your life, how you might end up baking bread in the ground. Pretty cool.